So, like, I mean, a lot of people who will like be watching or aren't won't be willing to do the release, to stand for 45 minutes in one
Sure.
position and do that stuff. But in terms of using the ideas as a way to be healthier
Yeah.
or to to look at things in your life that maybe are troubling that aren't getting released, we can use some of those ideas.
For sure. Yeah, and like there's little things that anyone can do that are helpful.
Like,
Like the first time people come in to see me, I always check. I have them sit. I do the pulse stuff, and then I take them into the treatment room, and I have them sit up on the edge of the treatment table, and I always come to their head first, and I show them how to align their neck up, just get their neck opened up a little bit, and it's very subtle, but if you just like the movement is like this big, but the way that you do it is you run your finger. You say, okay, I'm gonna run my finger up your neck like that, and I want you to let the feeling of that motion open the vertebra in your neck. Just let them follow the feeling of that all the way up to the top of your head, and like that's key. So that the difference between this and this is huge for neck health. It's also huge for people's blood pressure. It's huge for person staying in their head, not being able to get out of their head and think excessively.
so there's another way to think. Didn't Robert used to say like a string would be pulling?
Yeah, that's another way
would be
to put it.
to be pulling.
Yeah,
Like,
to be pulling you up here from Baihui. Yeah, you can do that too. But then there's also, so that's happening. That's going up.
mm-hmm.
Everything else is going down. So Tien-2 is going down. So that goes down like that. So you put your mind there for a second and you just let go of whatever's holding that up like that. And then your shoulders, your shoulders and your scapula, your blades back
mm-hmm.
here. Also, let them fall back. Let them fall down. Don't push them down. Let them fall. Yeah. So you have this going up, everything else going down. And what that will do is it opens up the dumai, the governing vessel, along the back. And if you put your tongue at the roof of your mouth, right, it connects the governing vessel and the renmai, the conception vessel. So then you have the small heavenly circuit potentially connected, at least, even if the channels aren't opened. You have that connection possible. Um, and then that, if you have that connection, then when too much goes up, it has a pathway to come back down and rest in the dantian, rest down here. Whereas if it gets stuck up here, there's all kinds of problems. People have anxiety. They have, in intense ways, they can have, like dementia, and they can have delusions and all kinds of stuff. But most people have anxiety. Like that's incredibly, almost universally common in today's clinic. Almost everybody has a version of anxiety. I think that has to do with how we live our lives.
Or even like racing thoughts. Like you'll hear people talk about racing thoughts and not being able to sleep.
Yeah.
Or not being able to be grounded or do meditation. I have racing thoughts.
Right. Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Or sleep.
Sleep. Exactly. So being able to let this sink and let everything come down, even if you only do that, like you practice that before you go to bed, you practice that when you get up, you practice it like for 15 seconds every time you sit down at a desk, and you just let everything sink. That's going to help you out a lot. It's like that right there is going to be big. And then the next couple of times people come in, I'll give them one more piece to add on to the first thing. So the next thing I'll teach them is to find their mind, which most people don't do. They don't know where their mind is. And big surprise, most people's minds are right here. They're not in their body. The shape of their mind is up here. It's not down in the body. So trying to get the mind to sink, and then what will happen if you can get the mind to sink is it'll start to radiate outward. So this is one of the Daoist advice for empaths, people who are too sensitive,
mm-hmm.
is not to try and imagine that they're protected by something. It's to be more fully embodied, so that their protection radiates out, so that their consciousness radiates out, as opposed to trying to focus on something that will protect them. Because the quality of focus is strong, but it's specific. And in this case, it's too specific. The idea is like you put your mind and your focus into something like this, and it will protect you from this. But what about this, 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 and this? So there's like, you not only need to be protected, you need to be fully embodied.
So what? Let me just go back. So you're talking about people who are taking on too much.
Yeah, anybody who would say I'm too sensitive, anybody who would identify with that statement.
So like it would make sense. You would think in a way like, oh well, let's find a way to create boundaries, to set up, to give you protection from that thing coming at you.
Right.
And what you're saying is, rather than like look outside of yourself, try to sink your mind into your body,
right,
so that your protection radiates out.
Right, exactly. And like when you're forming boundaries, right, the first thing that you have to do is check in with yourself anyway, right? Like you have to see, like, where am I? What do I want? What am I doing? Like anytime you make a boundary in life with another person or in a place or whatever, you have to check in with yourself first. So that the way that the Daoist prescription for that would be, well, like your power comes from being able to be embodied. The Daoist term for that is ting, to listen. Like listen into the tissues of the body. Listen into yourself.
So let me just pretend for a minute that I'm somebody who's coming to see you, and you're going to help me find my mind.
Sure.
What would I have racing thoughts? I can't sleep at night.
Sure.
Or how about, okay, so I wake up in the middle of the night and I just start thinking, and I can't go back to sleep because I keep thinking about what I have to do, or I keep worrying about this or worrying about that. Like, help me.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I would do is the same thing that I explained before. So I would tell people, well, you want to sit kind of on the edge of a structure, a chair, something like that, and then you'd want to direct your mind, and I would do the alignment stuff that we just talked about. I would make sure that their neck is open. That's very important. That this is open, that their neck is opened up to this. 3 of the most common points that people have blocked are here. I'll just show the camera. Are here, here,
is that
and here.
So is that here?
At the
like,
occiput, like where the neck connects to the skull, basically.
Is it where the skull bones are at the bottom?
Yeah.
Right there?
Yeah.
On either side?
Yeah. People, that's blocked for lots of people. It's because of how we sit. We sit like this. So
well, that's a big pain point for people too, isn't it?
It's huge, yeah. So just sitting with that neck alignment, that's really important. And then letting everything else sink down, just like going to your shoulders. And usually I'll touch things if people are okay with me. I ask them first, but are you okay with me touching your shoulders and showing you kind of what? Okay, so I'm going to touch here, and I want you to put your mind where this is, and just tell it that it's okay to let go. Like it's okay to let go. And I can feel that you just moved this, even though you might not be able to feel that. Maybe you can.
You felt it?
Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah. And then I'll go back here and I'll say, okay, so then we do the, yeah, sure.
Maybe I should do it like this.
Sure. So then we go back to the scapulas here, right? The wings.
The wings.
The wings. So I get this, and then I say, okay, now just let this go. Just tell that, yeah, see, and then it sinks down a little bit more. And the movement is tiny, but that's all that you can do at this time. So if you were to do a Neigong practice and stand until these things release, this movement is huge. That's a huge amount of progress for one day. And you continue to do that over and over again, and eventually your scapulas will sit down here, and your alignment will be completely different, which is kind of like one of the first goals of the practice. But none of that is necessary for this. You just want these things to let go. You want all the stuff that your mind is holding up to let go. And then this, we want to open. So I'm going to just feel that feeling and let the neck open up. And you can see a little bit of a change there. And that's good. And then part of what I'll do also for my own stuff is I'll be checking out people's backs and where there's spots of tension. Because there's a whole system of needling where you just needle down the central channels to try and get everything else to open up. So I'll be kind of checking that out while I'm here. And then the big one is this point here. So you just you find kind of where your neck is, and then you go right over to the bone. And there's this point right here. So this point you just want to let go like that. Yeah, see, that's good.
Now I exhale. I mean, really, what I'm doing is just focusing on that point.
Yeah, and that's
so
okay.
So, when you're talking about finding mind, it sounds like I know this because I even, I try to help people with this, and they'll be like, I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Well, this is why, but that's why one of the things you have to do first is you have to relax a little bit before the mind becomes found.
But even to say to somebody, like so the reason why the touch is important is because it gives me a reference point to put my mind.
Yeah.
So later on, you wouldn't need necessarily to have the touch to focus your mind here.
Right.
But if you just go from point to point, and in fact, like when you're doing small heavenly circuit, that's the practice. You just think of the point and you move your mind there.
Right. Yeah, that's one way to do that. So then I would do those things first with somebody, and then that process of me helping them get oriented that'll be helpful. I don't even do anything, because as soon as you get done with the head, then you're like right here, and then you run the risk of having these emotional, reactions and stuff. Usually
because you're in here.
Yeah, usually the first time you don't want to, unless somebody has something already, you don't want to open that up. It's just too much for the first.
So that's
round.
where you would stop.
That's where I would stop. But then I would tell people to, and when they're breathing, there's lots of different directions for breathing practices. In the lineages of Qigong and Neigong that I've practiced, they advise you to not, basically, most of the time, you're not trying to influence your breathing. So you're not with your mind trying to breathe deeper or to breathe in a certain way. It's not like that. You let go of the need to change the breath, to make the mind engage with the process of breathing. And you just let yourself breathe for a minute. And once people do that, then usually they're calm enough to be like, okay, so where is your mind? I want you to, your first task is to find your mind. Where do you feel like your mind is in your body? I say that specifically. Where is it in your body? And I mean, most people, their mind is right here. It's in their head. But if we do that for a while, and you let the weight of your mind carry you downward, not by force, but you just let it carry you downward. Most people with some level of attention can let their mind fall like that through their body. And you won't be able to go into things like people who are accomplished at these things. They can move vertebrae around in circles. They can move their internal organs with their mind. They can do all kinds of stuff that people maybe would think is impossible. But the reason they can do that is because they can feel those things. We can't feel those things because we haven't spent time trying to.
Right.
Right. So that's the basic. That's one of the first things I would work on, and I would encourage people. Anybody who has anxiety, it's good to work on breathing. And by work, I mean to spend time breathing, but not to try and
do anything.
Yeah. The less you can make your mind try and scramble the details, the better for folks.
But see, I think what people will say to me, people who, like if you try meditation or you try, like it's helpful to them to have like the counted breathing. Like sure. I'll probably, like that's what I would do with people to start, as I would do, let's just do like three
Mm-hmm.
counts in, 3
Mm-hmm.
counts out, 4 counts in, 4 counts out,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives somebody something to focus on, something to do while they're doing the breathing.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that some people, to say just breathe, they're not going to do it for very long. Like
Yeah.
they're going to sit and then they're going to say, well, that didn't work.
Sure. Right, and that is part of it. Like the part of it is, I don't even call it meditation, because I don't want any imagery for it. I just want people to be like, no, it's common sense. You're just gonna breathe a little. You're gonna learn to breathe a little bit better. And whenever you think to do it, just do it. 15 seconds. That's it. And if you can get people to start with that, it's easy to build.